Yo, so welcome to Corporate Counterculture, and today our episode is about redefining networking without schmoozing. And so, as you know, I'm Brian Taylor, and then we have,
Brian Martins.
and man, so we sit here and we talk about culture in corporate America, what should stay, what should go, and so today we are talking about networking. Networking is one of those things that's a necessary evil, right? So, how do you do it where it doesn't feel cringeworthy? Brian, what do you think?
Honestly, man, I think there's a delicate balance to being salesy and then networking, right? And so a lot of people talk about in the sales world, a lot of people talk about the commission breath. And when you're really desperate, it comes out that way. And people can
Ooh,
kind of pick up on your general body language and your general desperation.
for sure.
Whereas if you're just focused on networking, just focused on extending your reach and connecting with new people and learning and taking more information in, then I think that comes across that way. And talking just over drinks and maybe treating somebody to dinner just for the sake of claiming that it's networking might come off as a little bit shallow unless there is first that deeper connection there. And so there are some points that are to be made, but in my personal opinion, I always like to start with an actual tangible relationship before kind of taking a deeper dive and really kind of deep hitting somebody up for the second or third time, right? Like there has to be some baseline level of connection there, and that I think comes from value first versus hey, come buy it from me first.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think it all comes back to commission breath more than anything else.
So, if you don't know, Brian and Brian are in sales. So, when you hear
Yep.
very sales specific terms, it's because we're in sales. Now, I agree with you, man. I think that when it comes to that commission breath, that desperation, that posture of needing a sale is is off-putting. People don't want to be around somebody who's looking for a deal, right? Especially when you just think about it from a sheer numbers perspective. Most people in corporate America are not in sales. So most of the time you're not talking to another sales guy for them to even understand that energy and think it's acceptable. You know what I mean? And then you mentioned the small talk over drinks. That's interesting because at one point in time, we were in a culture where the thing was to say, hey, find somebody you want to mentor you, or find somebody who is at the next level in your organization and offer to buy them lunch or dinner or drinks and try to have conversation with them and build a relationship that way. And now it just seems like, dude, like leave them alone. What do you have to offer outside of trying to gain something from people? Where do you think it started to take a turn with that?
I think that in general, people are more and more weary of and skeptical of salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
And so unless you really have some sort of value to offer, then people honestly just don't want to talk to you. I just think it
Yeah.
comes down to that. I mean, I can straight up say that I'm that person. Like somebody knocks on my door and I feel bad for the guys because it's Florida and it's 100 degrees and the sun's beating down on you and they're knocking door to door. I get that aspect of it. I'll
Yeah.
offer them water, but at the same time, I'll also offer them to spare their time. I'm like, look, man, I understand you have a difficult job, but at the end of the day, I don't want you to waste your time here. This is going to be a waste of time if you want to continue this conversation. And so, because they don't have any value to actually offer me, right? Whereas, like, I'll
Yeah.
actually entertain somebody that has some value to offer me. And so, being on the receiving end of things is a bit sobering because it always makes me kind of come back to how I sell. And
Yeah.
so if I'm pushing and pushing and pushing instead of actually bringing that prospect closer, I'm actually honestly literally pushing them away. And
For sure.
that's where you really got to come out with that first snap of value. Okay, hey, Mr. Customer, and we're always taught this in sales, right, Brian? The elevator pitch. Hey, Mr. Customer, other organizations similar to yours have this and this problem. This is how we solve it. Does this mean anything to you? No, it doesn't. It's not my position. I'm in maintenance. Okay, great. Anybody I can talk to, and so forth. And so that's how that starts developing, I would say. But in general, unless you can get on some human connection, it's very, very hard to just schmooze right out of the gate. Hey, just some random person at a trade show. Hey, you want to go get drinks later? And the guy can just turn around and be like, I don't even know your name.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah,
So little things like that, I think, is where the real disconnect is and where the real shift is. With everything being so, what's the word? Like remote and fake in many different ways, right? Through social media and a lot of things just being in a general illusion. People in general want that tighter, actual, real human connection more than anything.
yeah, yeah. No, that's true, man. Um, and it's funny you mentioned the people knocking on the door because my wife actually helped me understand how much alike I am to that guy, right? So I've had a few people. I think it was a holiday weekend, so they knew everybody was at home, right? So it's like a 4-day weekend. One guy knocks on the door, he's offering lawn care. Another guy knocks on the door, he's offering turf. Another guy's trying to sell solar. Um, so
It's
many
always
different
solar.
things, so many different things that week, and I was like, "Yo, how disruptive it is for someone to just knock on your door, unexpected." And I have a no soliciting sign, like
Oh, you
right
do?
next to the
I
ring
bought one, never
cam.
put it up.
I'm
Yeah.
one of those guys, so I definitely don't pay attention when people knock on the door. So I'm like, how disruptive and how arrogant must you be to do that? And she was like, "Don't you do the same thing? Like, don't you call people self?"
That's so true. That's
And then you
exactly
call
it.
again and again and again. And I just started laughing. And I was like, "Well, kind of, but they need my service." She's like, "That's probably how you feel."
That's so true.
Yo. And so, dude, it just made me think like, yeah, when you look at how much sales has been romanticized through TV and media, it really doesn't go that way as often as it's portrayed. And so it made me think what we should be focusing on is okay, that 10% that we actually do get the conversion out of those 100 calls, that the 5% that actually do pick up the phone, what are those people looking for? In reality, is exactly what you said. Those people are looking for human connection. Now, how do you get to those people? That's where we have to really figure things out because only the people who answer the phone still answer the phone. Only the people who
Mm-hmm.
reply to emails reply to emails. Now,
Mm-hmm.
so that's why we spray and pray and hope that we actually figure out which one of those people are those type of people. But there has to be a better strategy to it. There has to be, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Here's what I think, right? Like, I always approach it as if I'm trying to network, the one thing that's going to follow me in terms of my actual network is just how I make people feel.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that I want to essentially like maintain is my relationship as
Mm-hmm.
a general honest salesperson, which is technically almost mutually exclusive in many aspects, right? Most people think of salespeople as like sleazy and it's that used car salesman type of attitude. And,
Yeah.
you know, you just want to get it out the door and get the problem off of your plate and push it onto the
For sure.
unsuspecting customer and that type of thing. So most people think of it that way. And many times that I try to just develop and start building that connection, I literally have that in my mind and try to do the exact opposite of that. So I'll give you two examples. Number one, I have a contact that one of the very first conversations was, "Hey, why are you interested in our product? You know, why did you call us?" "Well, I saw this and I saw that." I was, "Okay, it sounds like it makes sense. However, it doesn't sound like you're ready for it. When is a good time for me to get back to you?" So it's not I'm going to dictate when I'm going to be calling you. I want to make sure that it makes sense for both of us. And then he said, "Okay, call me in 3 months." When those 3 months came up, I called him back and said, "Okay, Mr. Customer, 3 months ago we had this conversation. Do you recall?" "Yeah, I do." "Okay, great. Does it still make sense?" I want to make sure that the conversation that we have and everything that I try to pitch to you is actually going to bring you value. If you say at any point, "This does not bring me value," from that point forward, we're both wasting our time. But my job is to understand whether or not it's going to bring you value. But you're the one that's essentially going to make that ultimate decision. So it doesn't matter how much we believe in our minds that our product is the save all for everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah,
and so there was that. And he specifically stopped the conversation to say, nobody's ever said that to me before. I appreciate you being upfront about that. I'm like, yeah, man, I don't want to waste my time and I don't want to waste your time. Like, if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. We move on, right? Like, I can go focus on something else that actually could close. So that's where, to me, the value is. And the second example is a contact that we actually had dinner with, right? So after many months of having this conversation, and we started talking back in May, started with a LinkedIn DM, and then somebody else chased them down at a trade show. And then finally I was able to get into their site, have a sit down with him and say, look, I understand you might have had a different experience with us in the past. Mm-hmm. My job is to understand what went well, what didn't go well, and lay out the path for a good process moving forward if it so gets to that point.
Yeah.
Fast forward 6 months later almost, and he says, look, it's not going to go forward. I said, okay. And he said, but at the very least, I connected with you and I appreciate you completely reversing my idea of the organization because you were able to erase that previous bad interaction and experience that I've had. And I will single-handedly recommend you as the solution for this and this. And I was like, okay, that's still a W. In my mind, that's a contact that I can always reach out to in the area or I know he's very active on LinkedIn and I know he's also very active in conferences and things like that. That's still a contact that I can reach out to and say, hey, here's somebody that can just attest to my way of doing business. And that to me is networking. Like if there's anything that I can do is I always kind of go back to it. People don't remember what you say. They remember how you made them feel. Right. So if there's anything that I can kind of come back around to is how am I going to make this person feel? What are they going to think of me when I leave the room or hang up the phone or get off this Zoom call? And that's kind of what's always first and foremost in my own mind.
Dude, I like that, man. I think it's important. The idea of relationship building is like the core of networking. Is granted, services and what I can solve for is absolutely needed and necessary from a B2B perspective, but there's plenty of products and alternatives. So it's like the 1A is really that relationship that you build when you're talking and dealing with these people. What would you say is something that you say, hey, I struggle with in the process of networking? Like, what is something where you're like,
So when I think of networking, right? Like, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to strictly be focused on networking. I always think of a networking event. I always think of a happy hour event, open bar, and just 300 people in like this ballroom of a hotel.
Name tags.
Literally what comes to mind. You know what I mean? And so like, yeah, name tags. And so, okay, do I have enough business cards? And now I have to try to introduce myself and be memorable to 300 people.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you end up being a business card in their Rolodex. You end up being somebody that they might have, they might remember. Maybe if you turn right around that night and just send everybody LinkedIn connections or connection requests and all that stuff, maybe they come back to remembering that you met them there. But in general, I've had people that I've connected on LinkedIn and not even known if they actually like recall ever meeting me in person, because I've seen them at future events too, right? So it's like, at the end of the day, did I really do anything, or did I just randomly connect with random people on LinkedIn?
Yeah, did I just go through the emotions?
Exactly. Did I just go through the motions of saying, hey, my company said that I should get out there and talk to more people and give out business cards and all this stuff? all of that comes into play, and all of that just makes me think of, it's a surface level connection, it's a surface level handshake, and it didn't really amount to any long-term benefits.
I feel you, dude. I feel the same way, man. I think that the networking events are the ultimate go through the motions. Like you said, you got to be memorable. You got to have business cards. You're walking around with a name tag. Everybody is literally pitching themselves. I always say networking events are like a trade show without attendees. It's just all the
Yeah,
exhibitors in one room
yeah, that's exactly it.
trying
That's
to pitch each
exactly it.
other. Like, hey, come to my booth. No, come to my booth. You know what I mean?
That's exactly it. Yeah, 100%. And the other thing too that I would actually pose this question to you is, what would be your ideal networking scenario or type of event? Because I'll give you one example that I actually got more out of than I imagined, and that's actually a training, an online training. It was like a Zoom training. You break out into these Zoom rooms and all this other stuff, and then you end up remembering people's names. You end up having more in-depth conversations. You connect on LinkedIn, and you remember saying, okay, I remember exactly where I met that person in the conversation that we might have had. I think that's pretty valuable. But what is your preference when it comes to potential networking?
Yeah, you know what? I think the digital online communities, trainings, whether in person or remote, are my ideal situation, mainly because we're all here for the same thing, right? And I think when everybody has the same mindset and they're all rowing in the same direction, which is technically what a networking event would be at the bars and things like that. It's a little different when you're online or in something a little bit more smaller and intimate. It's just hey, we're choosing to learn about this specific skill, or we're choosing to talk about this specific topic, and we're forming around this subject matter or belief outside of our day to day, versus we're all coming here to do business. I think that's what helps with those type of networking situations, is the networking happens organically versus trying to be forced in a networking event environment. So for me, it's definitely building relationships through a relationship building setting. Yeah. And then those connections lead to business contacts and networking and doing business together.
I think that's it, man. I think that, like, you have to have some level of common goal. And if you're trying to bridge the gap as a completely new person, then the completely new contact with somebody that you just met or you just cold called or whatever, then the common goal needs to be, hey, how do we work together to make it a win-win for your
Yeah.
organization, right? So I have that with somebody that I'm working a deal with right now. Granted, he's familiar with the organization. He's new at the organization that he's in currently, but he's used us before. Great. However, I am, as much as I'm kind of keeping my cards close to my chest, I'm also just saying, hey, we have a common goal here. Like, we both want this to work. We both think that this is going to work. Now, how do we both work together to make it work?
Yeah.
And I've seen that our relationship has essentially deepened, right? Where we text on a regular basis. I can ask him frank questions. I can expect honest answers in that sense. And then I can also give him honest answers too, with certain, when to push back, when to say that, there might be some room for improvement, that type of thing. The best way for me to establish that and to essentially, like, personalize it is to meet them where they're at and be like, okay, where do you want to get? Can I help you get there?
Yeah.
Yes or no? If no, great, we walk away. But if I can, then how do we make it happen? And I need your feedback to make that happen. I think that's the biggest thing, man. Networking it ends up being more, like you said in the beginning, romanticized, right? Through big events, big expectations. People just end up they come from organizations that have a strong presence, right? Like, imagine, depending on the field that you're in, for us, who's the epitome, right? Amazon, Walmart. And so, oh great, there's somebody from Walmart on this networking attendee list.
Yeah.
He could be the freaking driver.
Yeah, yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I
for
mean? Like,
sure. Yep.
and so it's not as simple as just like meeting somebody there. I think there's way more to it, but it is an art too, right? Like it takes reps, it takes practice, and I think
Yeah.
that's where I struggle personally. Is I know that I'm not that extroverted. I know that I'm not that type of person that's going to be walking up to people confidently, just, hey, what do you do, and how can we help each other, and maybe let's go grab a beer or something like that. And that's just not me. It's just
Yeah,
not,
yeah.
you know?
Nah, dude, that's true, man. I think that when it comes to networking, you have to integrate it in your life in a way that it feels natural, because you can't go to every event. You can't make every uh, trade show. You can't make every city council meeting or whatever place that you think you can find those contacts. You actually have to be in a flow that allows you to communicate what you do and connect with people, so that when people talk to you and you build relationships, they know what you do, and if there's a fit, y'all can talk about it. But outside of that, man, I mean, you really just have to just find little niches, little groups that are in that same industry, or even if it's just a same mindset, that you can kind of, I would say, co-labor with in that sense, because
Yes.
then we're all growing towards something outside of necessarily just here to get a business card or get a contact so that you could pass me to the right contact and then I could potentially make the sale. I think that networking has to go beyond sales, and it just becomes a part of who you are. Crazy thing is, you have to have enough time for it to do that, though. If you're always selling, or you're always on calls, or you're always a part of the sales process, you really don't have that time to network. And that's where it gets tricky too. It's like, how do you find your next deal if you're on every call and you're going through your deals, and it eats up your entire day? That's where it gets tricky. Where I think you either have to have different ways to network, or you have to have the right work structure, or we have to start transforming sales jobs into the right way where you can have that time to network.
I think it depends. I think that's a very personal, but also like company specific, or even role specific, or even season specific type of thing. When it comes to being super like uber focused on what's right in front of you, of course we're salespeople. Of course,
Yeah, yeah.
like close. That nothing takes precedence over closing.
For
However,
sure.
the next thing, and I think it's Jeb Blunt. Have you read any of his stuff? Heard any of
Yeah,
his
yeah.
audiobooks? So Jeb Blunt is the one that wrote Fanatical Prospecting, and
I
he,
got the book.
yeah, I haven't finished listening to it, but what I've listened to is really really good. And the
Yeah.
90-day cycle
Yeah.
is what stood out to me. Was if you have a period, a week, a month of heavy prospecting, networking, trade shows, cold calls, cold emails, driving around, that type of thing, then 90 months from now, that will pay off. If you have a month where there's a lull in that activity, if you're so caught up in the close, if you're so caught up in just getting stuff from one stage to the next and keeping your projects moving, that the prospecting falls off the map for you, then 90 months from that lull is where you'll see a lull in activity moving forward.
Yeah.
And 90 months, I said 90 days.
90 days. Yeah.
Yeah, 90 days. And when I first heard that, I was like, is that accurate? And then it hit me. And I was like, oh, it is accurate. And
No,
it
for
truly
sure.
was. And it was just like a month that was busy travel. I was gone. My wife was out of the country. And so I was just gone 3 out of the 4 weeks.
You're just like, I'm just
And
gonna
that
work
one
it.
week that I was here, like in my office, I was on my computer for 10, 12 hours a day, just going through everything that like the trade shows and everything else that I was at. but the actual new prospecting, the new stuff that I had done very, very well the month prior, a couple months prior, completely fell off the map. Exactly 90 days, dude, exactly 90 days later, it completely fell away from any of like, dude, it was insane for me to see that the exact 90-day cycle was not fictional and it was not some number that he just,
No,
kind of just made up.
no, there's a real cadence to it, man. For prospecting, you have to maintain a rhythm, and that's where it gets tricky. So for me, I try to, if I'm not cold calling, I try to do something where it's like, all right, maybe I don't know, at an industry organization event, or maybe I'm on the board of one of those organizations or something. Or I'm meeting with somebody who can give me connections, and I can double back to them. But that's where you have to start getting creative, because we're in this weird phase now where even if you don't have the lull, there's just, because of, I don't know if we can fully say it's still COVID. I think COVID has accelerated it, but innovation was already leading to, people are just not going to pick up the phone the way they
Mm-mm.
used to. They're not going to answer emails the way they used to. So, and I used to say this at UPS, and I got this from being in that fanatical prospecting phase of life where I was kind of teaching some of our salespeople. And I was like, you have to go from being a thought leader to a trusted advisor. Like, you have to start really,
Yes.
you can't just say this, you have to start really providing tangible evidence and details in your storytelling, that it's not just a sales pitch. It's actually, these are some results that I'm seeing, or we're seeing, or this is what the industry is saying about this throughput, et cetera, et cetera. And, so I started writing articles on LinkedIn just so I could get that presence where people would see that I know what I'm talking about, so that, it's kind of like how they say you make money in your sleep. I thought of it as that, where you can network in your sleep as long as you have some type of content doing work for you, because it only takes one person to pass it along to the next person, et cetera, et cetera. So that was just an early idea of mine, and I dropped it. Even though it worked, it was just like a phase of life where I was
Sure.
in this testing phase. But
Yeah.
now I actually think it's mandatory. I actually think about it now in the sense of, oh my God, we have to go back to that and do it 10 times better than before.
Hmm.
I don't know if you think anything or feel some of that in your networking now.
No, I mean, that's definitely the way it's going, right? Like the whole personal branding thing.
Yeah.
Who are you, right? And I think even kind of coming back to what I was saying, a little bit of what you're saying, you have to exact whatever you're actually saying. You have to
Hmm.
act it out.
Yeah.
The same way comes back to like me telling people, hey, I'm not a used car salesman. I'm here to provide you with a solution. If there
For
is no
sure.
solution, I'll tell you. But as soon as, talking the talk is over, you have to walk the walk. And if there is no solution, you have to be ready to cut away and say, look,
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
talking to you, but I have no place here anymore.
For sure.
And until you're presented with that, I think that until the time comes for you to actually cut off the conversation and so forth, it's much easier to just say that, right? But
Hmm.
then that desperation might want to start taking over, and then you might start getting some of that commission breath, and that's where you have to really, really, really trust yourself in the, I'm gonna let my network speak for itself. I'm gonna let my method of operation and my personality and my trust in my own capability speak for itself, and I'm gonna say I'm gonna do what I said I was gonna do. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I think that's the biggest thing. I think that's really the biggest thing. And I think an interesting point to that is, depending on who you follow, again, personal branding. But there's this guy Justin Welsh on LinkedIn,
Hmm.
and he has a post on networking and people networking like amateurs. So I'm just gonna read it. I'm gonna
Yeah.
read
Yeah.
it straight off the screen. It says, most people network like amateurs. Fix it by doing these three things. So number one, present yourself clearly. Who are you? What do you do? Why pay attention to you?
Yep.
Number two, use a value-driven approach. Solve the problem. send them useful information, support their business/project. And number 3, become a connector. So facilitate introductions, help them level up their network, and then become the go-to connector. And most people mess this up. They make it all about me, 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 which is wrong. Building relationships is about them. If you're struggling to network and grow, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's basically it. And I think that I've not just kind of like tout my own thing, but just saying, hey, I don't have something for that, but I think I have somebody that I can connect you to, right? That's huge. Because you improve their network by using your own network. Mm-hmm. And that goes a long way too. Like, you still provided a solution to their problem without you being the solution to their problem.
Yeah.
So it's a lot, but it's also very simple in a way too. And I think that as salespeople in particular, granted we're talking about networking, and networking applies to all walks of the corporate world and business and everything.
Yeah.
But as salespeople in particular, we got to remember to mind our commission breath and mind our desperation, because that usually will start taking over.
Dude, no, that's true, man. It's crazy because this is how I always say corporate America is really good at telling you the truth in your face and then allowing you to create your own lie. You know what I mean? And so when I used to teach salespeople, I used to say B2B is about your BOB. And so like B2B sales is about your book of business, because that's what they ask you in the interview, right?
Yeah.
But for some reason, then once you get into the company, you can't say the names of the companies we're working with, the solutions that we provide them. You can't tell any details.
Yes.
And so you go through this mental gymnastics of, I need this for my resume, but I don't use this when I'm trying to build my pipeline. And that's what's crazy, is that
That's true.
The thing that got you the job is the thing that'll build your pipeline, but we don't do it because we've been put in that spin cycle where we just kind of like, yeah, I got these contacts. They thought it was good to hire me because I can go through this city and I've done this. And then you get into the job and you just like go like a racehorse instead of doing the same thing that got you there.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really, really good point.
Yeah, man. And so now with Chat GPT and all these other types of co-pilot and everything, the copy, the text, the conversation, everybody's going to sound the same. So the only way to not sound the same is to not be the same. The only way to not be the same is to have a relationship. And that's kind of why I think like we're all going to have to do like companies, just like they're downsizing in their labor force. We're going to have to downsize in our tactics and activities. You know what I mean? I was at a trade show this past week, and if you've ever been to Vegas, you know they got North Hall, South Hall, West Hall, East Hall. There's no way anybody. I mean, you could spend days going through all of those, but you have a better chance of someone referring you to that person who's walking a trade show floor than that person at the trade show discovering you in that big trade show. You know what I mean?
That's true. That's true.
Like,
there's too much volume. There's too much noise.
There's too much volume. There's too much noise. And let's say you do come across that person. Yes, you'll get their information. They'll be interested, but they did that with 90 people. All of y'all, or more than that, and all of y'all are going to say, I'm not going to email them Monday, or I'm going to let them get back and get situated. I'm going to email them on Wednesday. Now you're all emailing them on the same day that you think is the best day. And so now they got 90 emails and they don't have time to go through 90 emails. So now you're back in that mass of people that they don't want to deal with, because we're all doing the same thing, even though we're strategically trying to make ourselves stand out. But everybody's trying to stand out by doing the same thing. It's a exercise of futility. So now you have to create a way for somebody to put eyes on you. Only way for that is referrals. You know what I mean?
I think, and I think that comes back to the reputation and kind of the way you make somebody feel.
For sure.
Like, this guy screwed me over. I'm never going to recommend him to anybody else. Anybody that asks me about him, I'm going to tell him the truth, and the truth is ugly.
Yeah.
Or hey, this guy didn't try to sell me something I didn't need. I trust his take, and
For
I
sure.
trust his whatever he's telling me. I think that goes way, way further than anything else. Because the same thing goes for like if you're buying a car, right? If you have a good interaction, which I've had this experience, if you have a good interaction with the sales guy where he sells you the bumper to bumper warranty and something happens, you need to use that bumper to bumper warranty and it's not actually bumper to bumper, right?
Yeah.
They pick and choose different things. But if the sales guy steps in and says, you know what? Hey, I understand that that one particular component is busted and it's not covered in the warranty, but I'll talk to them and I'll see what they can do. Even if he gets 20% off of whatever the service might be or whatever the cost of the part might be, then at least you'll say, hey, that guy went to bat for me.
True.
Or
True.
if you're in the middle of a negotiation and you're talking about kind of some of your concerns and is it going to fit, is it not going to fit, and they give you an honest opinion and say, look, it sounds like you want more than a sedan but not a big SUV. Maybe you go to a crossover.
Yeah.
Or hey, you came in here saying that you wanted a Jeep Wrangler but you don't like the ride. Maybe you check out this other vehicle over here. That honest back and forth will make me go back to that same salesperson
Mm-hmm.
because he didn't try to shove something down my throat that I didn't need or didn't want. You know what I mean? And that's always what I think of is I'm a sales guy. We in general we have a stink about us, right?
Yeah.
And so in all of that, I just want to do everything in my power to remove that and reverse that kind of expectation for most people's minds. And usually that's the way it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's, hey, I've never had a sales guy talk to me this way. I've never had a sales guy say this to me. I appreciate you
Yeah.
saying that, or I appreciate you not, pushing on this or pushing on that. So more than anything, man, you're always taught to listen, 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 right? And if you can listen more and talk less, then you can understand what's going to make that person tick and you can find exactly where to push in terms of the actual meaningful connection aspect of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, so with all of this going on, with as we discussed, like networking in the drink scene, that's not it anymore. You got to have relationships. The AI, the digital presence, all things are changing. People don't answer the phone like they used to. They don't check emails like they used to. How do you stay top of mind? Like, what do you think is the best way to stay top of mind, or what should people start doing if they're not doing, or have we not discovered that yet?
I think that people will say rely on your LinkedIn presence, become an influencer in that way and build your
Mm-hmm.
personal brand. But at the same time, I feel like you just become a number at that point, right? And people
Mm-hmm.
might read the post, but they don't necessarily always attribute it to the right person.
Yeah.
If we're talking about content specifically, what works for me is just, hey, we spoke a year ago. Do you remember our conversation? If not, it's totally fair. We talked about XYZ. I'm following back up to see if anything's changed. Is there anything else I could do for you? Or if it's somebody that you had an interaction with, it was a successful interaction, but then once that sale handoff happened, you never checked back in. That's a big thing too, right? That follow up of, hey, are you still happy with your equipment? Is there anything that I can do, that might make you feel better? If you don't feel good already, that whole thing.
Yeah.
Check-ins are hard. Check-ins are really, really
Check-ins
hard
are hard, bro.
because it's a delicate balance of being too cold and trying to stay memorable. I've, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know because I haven't found the right one.
Yeah.
I can tell you that if I'm getting a random email from somebody I talked to a year ago, I'll probably delete it and never think about it again.
Yeah.
So I just don't want to be that guy on the other side. You know what I mean? The one sending the email. So how do you cut through the noise?
Man, so I know we talked about Jeff Blunt, we talked about Welch, and I know we've talked about in different conversations like the Cody Sanchez's and things like that. I actually think um, that I don't know, like you, but then my only idea that keeps coming to mind is in some form of fashion, you do have to have some type of digital presence, right? Um, but I don't know what that looks like. All right, so LinkedIn is a big space. Uh, and that's technically the best space for working professionals. So, but it's a messy space because you're technically there as a person, right? But your whole personal brand is connected to your professional brand. Like so by those two having an intersection, which is pretty much what that platform is, they're taking you as a person and validating your expertise based on who you work for.
Mm-hmm.
By that happenstance, it kind of puts handcuffs on you on how you choose to communicate, what you communicate, and what you can do. Not saying that you can't be great on LinkedIn, but I do question for somebody like me who would be very much an amateur at trying to be somewhat of an influencer, what that looks like. Where I think the only opportunity is a place like this, like a YouTube, where you can kind of express yourself, where people aren't looking at you first by your resume and by the company you work for. And I think first having your presence as a person known, then them listening to your expertise is the best way. And then maybe eventually that becomes a newsletter for you to stay top of mind with actual results of your work. Maybe it's a monthly report, a quarterly report. Hey, you know what? We talk about corporate counterculture all the time. I don't know. Maybe there's hey, this is what we did differently in selling this year, or this is how we did this meeting differently instead of going to drinks. And then taking that same, I guess conceptually taking that same thing, it would be, hey, we're in automation, right? And here's a newsletter of how we helped people. Here's how we integrated some systems and some technology and some software and machinery and saved them money. If you're interested and you're in Florida, call Bryan. If you're in California, call Bryan. Like maybe that's the thing. Like everybody has to become hyper local and stay top of mind by people who want to be and who choose to be invested in being notified when you have something to say. You know what I mean?
That's a good point. Yeah, no,
That's the
I
only
get that.
thing I can think of, because I think about and I'm just thinking about it from YouTube brain, since we're in this space now, because there's a difference between subscribing and getting notifications.
Yes, it's a step above.
It's a step above.
It takes an actual, action by
Yeah,
the consumer.
yeah. So you can actually not get notifications of people you subscribe to. So maybe that is the thing. Like, hey, I'm interested in knowing where this person is moving the needle beyond the scope of conversation. I'm interested to know what they're actually doing in this particular space, because I may need them one day. So I don't know. That's just kind of where I'm
That's
wrestling with. You know what I mean?
yeah, that's a good point, because LinkedIn is, like you said, it's resume company first.
Yeah.
So, and it's also like a lot of eyes on personality, or not personality, but personal ideals versus how that makes, an organization look. And so that
Yeah.
because that relationship is so tight on LinkedIn, it's tied specifically.
Oh my
The
God, bro.
first thing that's there is name, location, and company.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing else. So if that's not if I guess it's a slippery slope, because you might not have as much room to express yourself as much as you want to. And so it becomes, I don't know, like you said, it becomes handcuffing as well as all like,
This is what made me think about it. Somebody had a stupid post. It was very stupid, but then I was like, technically, this is the best you can do on LinkedIn. They were talking about brushing their teeth, and what if they didn't have toothpaste while they brush their teeth, and how it's like not having the engineer do the sales process. And I'm like, that's what you have to do on LinkedIn, because you can't just say, I I won this account.
that's exactly it.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
No,
Like
that's a good way to put it.
they force you to do this like circle jerk of conversation instead of just saying, yo, I just signed a $2 million deal with this Fortune 50 company, and we implemented these systems, and they're going to grow by 10% and save 20% year over year on labor, et cetera, et cetera. You can't say that because your company logo's right there. So then you
Yes.
have to say, I brushed my teeth this morning, or I went to Starbucks, and what I learned from a barista.
I can't, man. I can't. That stuff is like I'll just skip that. Where's the too long didn't read version of this, dude? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I don't want that.
That's how we got to that point, is
Yeah.
because of the trap of what you actually can't say.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
almost feel like you have to use those spaces to get people in your space where you can be authentic and real. You know what I mean?
I agree with that. I agree with that.
I don't know what that looks like, but yeah.
But at the same time too though, I do also think that there is a certain, like everybody has a certain level of filter in a professional environment. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like you still want your real personality to come through, right? Like
Yeah,
in
yeah,
every
yeah.
interaction. The creativity aspect of things and trying to build up your, let's call it your personal brand in a way, um, how closely does that relate to your professional brand and so forth? So like it's so difficult, man. It's interesting once you factor in the LinkedIn aspect of things and how it's
Dude.
named them company, then it's like, oh, okay, I really have to watch what I write and all this stuff, because you'll even notice too, unless you're a business owner or retired. Like I have my old company, a lot of people retired and all that stuff.
Yeah.
All the political stuff is
It's
people that don't work anymore. You know what I mean? So like the stuff that's like uber political is like, oh yeah, you're retired. Like nobody can fire you, or
yeah.
nobody can, can scold you for anything. So
Yeah. It's it's crazy, bro. Like we fall into the branding, and they want you to be branded so they can make decisions on your validity, but then you can't be branded. You can't outwardly express how branded you are.
yes,
You know what I mean? Which is a
yes,
weird thing. It's like, okay, the recruiter saw that I worked for these companies. That validates me as someone worthy of their attention to reach out to see if I'm interested in the job. When you interview, they ask you about your book of business. But if I speak about that book of business personally
mm-hmm,
in the public, it's taboo. That's,
mm-hmm,
you know what I mean? Like that's crazy,
yeah,
right?
yeah, it is. That makes no
It
sense.
makes no sense. And then
Yeah,
dude, so that's where I get into this whole thing of it's, it is cringe because it just is, but then they've also kind of, these things got this way because that's what we're left with based
yeah,
on our structures and
yep,
based on unspoken rules. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah,
oh, well, why'd you lay it up when you're up 20? It's like, well, that extra 2 points shouldn't hurt your feelings, but
yeah, yeah,
you know what I mean? Like that.
yep,
That's where we are, dude. It's like Fang.
yeah,
Why do I know Fang? Why do I, who've never worked for Facebook, Amazon, Google, or Netflix, why do I even care? They don't even sell the same stuff. So why
yeah,
do they get to be Fang and I just have to be like, oh man, that's cool that you worked for one of these companies. So that's where I kind of get into that space of like, how do we get here and how do we get
yeah.
out of it? And I think the only way out of it is to do the same thing they do, but put it in a mastermind small group setting or something. I know I'm saying the same thing, but I just keep circling back to that same answer.
Yeah, but it makes total sense, because the only way you're gonna have those in depth conversations, these types of conversations that you and I are having right now, is by taking a deep dive into actual tangible experiences.
Yeah.
you can't publicly express or tell potential competitors of each other the amount that they paid, the amount of savings they're going to get, and the result of that, right? Like
Yeah.
all that is very, very sensitive information. And so you can have that conversation in person. You can't put that in writing. You can't, you know what I mean? So
True.
that you got to be very, very careful of how you share what you share. Interesting. Very,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
interesting. But it's also very, very important because if you don't have anything to share, then it's just like, okay, this guy doesn't actually know anything. This guy doesn't actually have any real life experience. This guy hasn't
True.
really helped anybody, right? Like that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing, right? Like you come across an influencer on Instagram. Oh, look at these before and afters if it's fitness, right?
Yeah.
Or if it's business. Look at where he was before and look at what he
Where
did
he
in
is
6 months. He went from,
Yeah.
20,000 to a million or whatever. Like, so, and that's the person that you want to hire if you're in the
Yeah.
market for a business coach, for a fitness coach, for whatever. So
You
the
see the
same thing goes
results.
for us. If you're in the market for an automation solution, they're going to go after the people that have done it successfully, right? But then how do you express and show that success without giving off and you know sharing and sharing sensitive information? It's tough.
It's a
That one's
dude.
difficult.
It's a weird dynamic because in the sense of networking, I thought long and hard about this like for clearly the whole weekend. So I could talk about it forever. But I was even thinking about the Chipotle. So I thought about two things that really made me think about this networking thing. The Chipotle CEO who went to Starbucks. And the whole reason why it's such a big deal is because he was at Chipotle, so you can physically see the results of
Yes.
what he did at Chipotle going to Starbucks. So there's no hiding the results. Like his resume, he's a walking resume based on how well he's done with this company. And him, if you look on his LinkedIn, he's at one point in time he was promoting how great and how many strides they've made at Chipotle. And then also you have earnings reports. Every quarter, the company talks about how great they are, the mergers and acquisitions, the amount of money they've made. Yet, I cannot do that as an employee.
That's
Like
right.
I can't use my results unspokenly to network in the way that they do. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's where I give grace to people who are in that cycle of drinks and taking people out. But I also was like, how do we get out of here? Like, what do we
Yes.
do to get out of here? And it's almost the answer is to do what they do, but that also puts you at risk of losing your job. So it's a very interesting thing on what's the strategic way to be like the company in their way of networking and relationship building, if that makes sense.
I'll give you an example of somebody that I think has nailed the corporate, like, what's the word? It's not the corporate world, but like nailed climbing the corporate ladder. And if there's one thing that this guy does that I've seen firsthand, um, is constantly advertise his wins.
Yeah. Okay.
It doesn't matter who the audience is. And I've seen that, no matter if it's a coworker, if it's a superior, if it's a a prospect, if it's just some random person, constantly advertising wins. Yeah.
I
And I
like
think
that.
I think that is like, okay, hey, it's not actually on paper anywhere and not being recorded. I'm not, but everybody that I talk to knows that, hey, I'm doing this and I'm killing it here and
Yeah.
I'm doing that and I've done this. And I think that's again not my personality style. It's just not who I am personally. But it works. And I think that that's
Yeah.
a big way of networking, staying top of mind because they're able to put a name and a face to a result.
Yeah.
That's big. That's really, really slick. And I think that that's really smart in potential moves and things like that because like you're saying, right, if you're going to put stuff on LinkedIn, know that that's now tied to your resume.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to have like a walking resume or something like that, where people think of your name and your face, then they also think of results. And so like the three are now intertwined with each other.
Bro.
So it's a
That's a good, yeah, okay. Yeah, it
it's
probably is
interesting.
uncomfortable. That is interesting. I like that.
Depends on your personality though. Some people
Yeah,
it
you
works,
would,
right? Like for this particular person, it works really well. But for me,
yeah,
that's not me. I don't do that.
yeah.
So it's
'Cause
just
they would say, "Hey, what's up, Brian? How you doing today?" You'd be like, "Dude, awesome, man. I actually just pulled in a deal with
yeah,
Coca-Cola Company, and we're going to be building boxes in their
yeah,
satellite location, and
yeah,
it's going to be such and such." And they'd be like, "Oh, that's
yeah.
awesome," but you would have to. That would just have to be your thing, like
That's your
layering
thing.
your lay,
Constantly.
constantly
Yep.
layering your stories throughout
Yeah.
your day-to-day conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Might work.
It
Might be worth a
might
shot for
work,
some
man.
people.
You know what it you know why I think people don't do that?
Why?
Because I and this is me guessing because I mean we're just
Yeah.
spitballing here,
We're
but
spitballing. Yeah.
I think when you hear something, when you hear I think because we have in our head success is so much tied to money. If it doesn't make sense, if it doesn't show both of those, if there's no correlation, then it feels like null and void, right? Like if you tell
Yeah.
me you're working because that same person, if you tell me you're working with Coca-Cola, then in my head I'm like, dude, you must be doing super well financially. So it almost is like if you show your hand, you show your hand like, hey, I just signed a huge deal. But now that you know I signed a huge deal, you also know that the company is underpaying me. You know what I mean? I think there I don't know. I think there could be some type of Tai Chi that people play in their head where because if you told me the same thing I just said with like, oh, I just signed
Mm-hmm.
this deal with Coca Cola, we're gonna run their machine in their satellite location. In my head, I'm like, dang, dude, like ballin'. I might say something silly that may be like, not really. You know what I mean? You may
Yeah.
perceive my excitement for you, and then reality set in. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the
Yeah. Maybe.
That's the only. That's the because I'm wondering why I don't do that or why don't other people do that because it does make sense to be a walking resume, but then if you get laid off, you know what I mean? Like I think there's so many layers to it of maybe why
Yes.
people don't do it.
Yes. Because also too, right? Like if you're overly advertising your benefits, like you're saying, are you fishing for a new job? Like why do I care?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
if I'm on the receiving end of that conversation and I just met you, why do I care? You
yeah,
know what I mean? And the same thing is like if I'm now the employer, for example, why are your personal wins or your business wins relevant to this new prospect that you're talking to or something like that? Like, are you trying to, you know, stoke yourself up so that you can be the big bad man that now can get any job anywhere he wants to go? So it's like all of those things I think
yeah.
play a role. And like you're saying, right? Like you got to be very, very careful of how it can be received.
Hmm.
And I think that's a delicate balance. It's a truly a delicate balance.
Dude, it is because I have the clearest example of this. So I've been both in shape and out of shape,
Mm-hmm. Same.
and and in shape, the look people give you when you take your shirt off is different from out of shape. Like I've been out of
Yep.
shape trying to get in shape, running with
Yep.
my shirt off. It's Southern California, so everybody's running with their
Yep.
shirt off, and everybody's like, "Yeah, man, get to it." Even people passing me, running with me. Oh man, awesome, stay on it. Running with your shirt off when you're in shape, and you're like, "Look at this asshole!" Like just trying to show off.
Yeah.
So I don't. I
Yeah.
think so. I think there's a lot of psychological triggers that keep us from doing some of these things too.
Yeah. It's all
I got to
about
think
like
through that.
you can't you can't think of how somebody's gonna receive something. Like you can
Yeah.
have all of the good intentions, and even tying this back into like networking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can walk up to somebody with only good intentions, but there could be some sort of personal aspect there. There could be some sort of like historical with your organization if you're wearing a badge or something like that,
Oh yeah.
that could completely throw off the interaction and you have no idea why. So there is the, hey, I have to come at this like with all good intentions, or I have to come at this ready to accept the results that might happen from it. But there is that other half that is no longer up to you. So
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know, man. When it comes to like coming back full circle, when it comes to staying top of mind, when it comes to networking and kind of that long-term relationship building, you also have to focus on the fact that no matter how much good intention you put into it, it could all be thrown out the window just because it's a personal thing that the other person can't get over.
True.
So who knows, man?
Yeah.
This is a good one. I think this is a really, really good one because there's just so much nuance to it. I think
is, dude.
everybody approaches it a different way, different levels
Yeah.
of being extroverted or introverted, and different levels of being able to connect.
Yeah.
And work a crowd and work a networking event, or
True.
even interaction electronically, following up. All that it's truly an art form. And there's people that have mastered that. There's people that have been able to be themselves and yet build up their network. But also what I've learned is it's a long game. So
It is.
hey, I'm gonna go to this networking event this year. They hold it every year. I'm gonna go back every year because I know that in 5 years from now I'm gonna see the same people, and then that way my network is solidified in that
It's
sense.
grown.
Like I worked with people in my last job that saw the same people, worked with the same organizations for 40 years. And it took that long to establish trust. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
not necessarily establish trust, but to maintain the trust.
To
Right?
maintain
If you're
the
seeing,
trust
you're
in
talking
the
to the same
relationship.
people, it's a long-term thing, right? Like you're going into business together, or you want to go into business with a person, they have to trust you on some level. So it all comes back to trust, dude. People buy
Trust.
from people.
Yeah, that's true. You buy from people and people have feelings. So we gotta it's the long game. Dude, y'all gotta tell us what y'all think about this. Y'all have to in the comments or send us a message, something. Tell us what you think about networking. Tell us what you think about relationship building in the corporate or work setting. And how do you approach it? Because we're still trying to figure this out. Clearly, we're gonna have to do a part two, clear
Yes.
in a couple of months or something as a follow up. But yeah, once again, this was corporate counterculture, and we'll see y'all next time.
See ya. Peace.